A couple of other poems to share. I'm taking these from different books. We clergy, we collect anthologies all the time, and I have a wonderful book called the Oxford Book of Christmas Poems. And I'm looking up a poem by the Roman poet Martial. It's actually a Roman thank you letter, so you can be sure that it's not going to be about Christmas, and yet it is about gifts. So it's good sometimes to remember that we're not the only ones who give and receive gifts. It's a Roman thank you letter for the new year, which took place in January, hence January 1st in Janus. Martial writes to a friend, "For New Year, Posthumus, 10 years ago, you sent me 4 pounds of good silver plate. The next year, hoping for a rise in weight, for gifts should either stay the same or grow, I got 2 pounds. The third and fourth produced inferior presents, and the 5th year's weighed only a pound. Septicus's work ill-made into the bargain. Next, I was reduced to an 8-ounce oblong salad platter. Soon it was a miniature cup that tipped the scales at even less. A tiny 2-ounce spoon was the 8th year's surprise. The 9th at length and grudgingly disgorged a pick for snails, lighter than a needle. Now, I note the 10th has come and gone with nothing in its train. I miss the old 4 pounds. Shall we start again?" Wicked fellow, isn't he? A more contemporary poem I'm going to find by Robert Frost. And I'm looking for it here in this wonderful book that's actually written all around Norman Rockwell paintings, but it collects a number of poems and stories in which I first found the fabled story of Jabez Dawes, for those who remember that from the first Sunday in Advent. This one is a poem by Robert Frost. It's called Christmas Trees, and it ends with a thank you note, or at least a letter. The city had withdrawn into itself and left at last the country to the country. When between whirls of snow not come to lie and whirls of foliage not yet laid, there drove a stranger to our land who looked the city, yet did in country fashion, in that there he sat and waited till he drew us out, a buttoning coats to ask him who he was. He proved to be the city come again, to look for something it had left behind and could not do without and keep its Christmas. He asked if I would sell my Christmas trees, my woods, my young fir balsams, like a place where houses are all churches and have spires. I hadn't thought of them as Christmas trees. I doubt if I was tempted for a moment to sell them off their feet to go in cars and leave the slope behind the house all bare, where the sun shines now, no warmer than the moon. I'd hate to have them know if it was I. Yet more I'd hate to hold my trees, except as others hold theirs or refuse for them beyond the time of profitable growth. The trial by market everything must come to. I dallied so much with the thought of selling that, whether for mistaken courtesy or in fear of seeming short of speech, or whether from hope of hearing good of what was mine, I said, they're not enough to be worth the while. I could tell you how many they would cut. You let me look them over. You could look, but I don't expect I'm going to let you have them, said I. Pasture, they spring in, some in clumps too close, that lop each other's boughs, but not a few, quite solitary, and having equal boughs all round and round. The latter, he nodded, yes, or paused to say beneath some lovelier one, with a buyer's moderation, oh, that'll do. I thought so too, but wasn't there to say so. We climbed the pasture on the north, crossed over, and came down on the south. He said, 1,000. 1,000 Christmas trees? At what a piece? He felt some need of softening that to me. 1,000 trees would come to $30. Then I was certain I had never meant to let him have them. Never show surprise. But $30 seemed so small beside the extent of pasture I should strip. 3 cents, for that's how they figured out a piece. 3 cents so small beside the dollar friends I should be writing to within the hour? Would pay in cities for good trees like these, regular vestry trees whole Sunday schools could hang enough to pick off. 1,000 Christmas trees I didn't know I had, worth 3 cents more to give away than to sell, as may be shown by a simple calculation. Too bad I couldn't lay one in a letter. I can't help wishing I could send one to you and wishing you herewith a Merry Christmas. For those who don't recall, 3 cents was a first-class stamp in the 1940s. So each tree was worth exactly the postage of sending a letter. So, how are you doing after Christmas? Are you writing your thank you notes? Are you behind like me? Or are you fortunate enough that you actually see all the people who gave gifts to you and you could express them in the most honest and thorough way by getting kisses and hugs and smiles? I don't know, but it seems to me at a time like this, the warmth of human beings surpasses all the promise of angels and all the charm of the shepherds. Back in the year 1513, Fra Giovanni, a man of some consequence in Italy, wrote to a patroness, the Contessa Aldobrandeschi, a famous letter that I'm going to read. It won't take very long. It's his Christmas wish. I salute you, he writes. I am your friend, and my love for you goes deep. There's nothing I can give you which you have not, but there is much, very much, that while I cannot give it, you can take. No heaven can come to us unless our hearts find rest in it today. Take heaven. No peace lies in the future which is not hidden in the present instant. Take peace. The gloom of the world is but a shadow. Behind it, yet within our reach, is joy. There is radiance and glory. Even in darkness could we but see. And to see we have only to look. I beseech you to look. Life is so generous a giver, but we, judging its gifts by their covering, cast them away as ugly or heavy or hard. Remove the covering, and you will find beneath a living splendor, woven of love by wisdom, with power. Welcome it, grasp it, and you touch the angel's hand that brings it to you. Everything we call a trial, a sorrow, or a duty, believe me, that an angel's hand is there. The gift is there, and the wondering of an overshadowing presence. Your joys, too, be not content with them as joys. They, too, conceal diviner gifts. Life is so full of meaning and purpose, so full of beauty beneath its covering, that you will find earth but cloaks your heaven. Courage, then, to claim it. That's all. But courage you have in the knowledge that we are pilgrims together, wending home through unknown country. So did you do what Fra Giovanni asked? I looked back a little bit and said, did I take heaven? And I did. That is to say, we espouse here a dream that heaven is not something we wait for or try to earn, but create in our own midst. There's a hymn we sing. It includes the word fountain, so we like it a lot. And the text says, when we all serve one another, then our heaven is begun. This past week, we did a lot of serving of one another with an important and challenging memorial service just on Friday. And with very little notice, dozens of us came to provide the food and leapt in to offer support. And there was a moment of heaven present even in the midst of death. We took heaven this week. Yes, Fra Giovanni, brother, we took heaven. Did you take peace? Well, I think we did. Despite the many tasks, I took Christmas Day, and except for worrying about work come evening, the rest of the day I did nothing of consequence. Did you do the same thing, or did you feel guilty about it? I hope not, because as another poet, Yue Fanthorpe, puts it, dull, boring peace sprawls over the land at Christmas. when Romans have nothing better to do than to count faraway people in censuses? Did you have a boring, dull day? Well, God bless you if you did. You took some peace. And if you didn't, did you want one? And have you scheduled one yet? Make a point of it. Maybe on New Year's Day, all of your partying will encourage indolence. I would encourage that too. So the world waited, and I took peace rather than waited for it, because if you wait for peace, it will not come to you. I looked again at Fra Giovanni, and I said, did I look truthfully at the world? I don't know about you, but the ice storm last week, that was a chore, wasn't it? A challenge. It was difficult. But then on Christmas Eve and even on Christmas Day, when people had nothing better to do because they were having so much peace, they posted on their Facebook accounts pictures of the trees covered in ice. And suddenly we were looking at the beauty of the storm, not just its bothersomeness. We looked, we beheld, we saw what was there, not just felt what was missing. Sometimes we have to look up from the chores, look up from the afflictions, look away from the tasks and the duties, and see the world right in front of us, which even under the most difficult moments is throwing beauty in our faces. And all we have to do is see it. We don't have to look for it. It's already there. Did you behold the beauty as well as the challenge? I did. I removed the covering, as Fra Giovanni put it. I took off the world and put something else in its place. I have to tell a little story right now. I have a wonderful relationship, not just with my music director, but with her husband, who with his son, Joseph, goes and collects Christmas trees for us because he has a pickup truck and I don't. And strapping a tree to the top of your car no longer has the appeal it did long ago. And so I said, Jim, if you don't mind, when you go out to cut that tree, would you go cut a tree for me too? And he does, and he brings it into the house while I'm out of town. And of course, you have to saw off a portion to fit it in the tree stand. And it's at that moment that we discover that the tree is not perfectly straight. In fact, if we put the tree stand on it, the tree will go like this. We tried a number of different things, but it simply was not going to be an indoor Christmas tree. Now, this could have been a tragedy, a loss, a pain, a sorrow, but instead, no. We took off the covering of expectation. We removed all of the thoughts we had about Christmas trees, and we had two wonderful thoughts. One, we'd always wanted to put a tree in our backyard and decorate it for the birds. We now had one. But what will we do for the tree in the house? And we thought all that time about how much effort it is to bring one in and cut one down. And then we thought about buying a plastic one, an artificial one. And I looked it up on the internet, and it turns out the carbon footprint of a false tree, a phony tree, takes 20 years of use before it equals the loss of a real tree. And so we were perplexed. And then suddenly we had an insight. When I say we, I mean my wife. A tree is a shape. And so she imagined 8 dowels, each suspended about 8 to 10 inches apart, linked by ribbon. And we hung our ornaments in a tree shape on the dowels. And they hang in front of a doorway. They shed not one needle. And I don't have to be worried about sending them out to the curb for recycling. Is it as splendid as an indoor tree that comes from indoors? No, but we saw that the beauty was not in the presence of the tree, but in the presence of wanting it to be. And the tree we had another blessing to give to the birds and the squirrels. That's what I mean by removing the coverings of expectation. Now, did you have courage? Remember, Fra Giovanni wants us to have courage. For those of you who don't know, it really was a daunting week this last week. I mentioned the memorial service on Friday, an important one because it was a young man who perished. And of course, there were the Christmas Eve services 3 days before that. What you may not remember is there was a memorial service the day before that. And the 2 Sunday services, the 4th Sunday in Advent, the day before that. And of course, there was also the funeral off-site at another funeral home the day before that. So if you start from last Saturday, which would be the 21st, to today, which is the 29th, 8 days, we did at least one worship service per day. It took a little bit of work. It was trying. But as I told myself and others, including people who are dealing with death, when you're facing difficult times, it's a little bit like eating an elephant. You do it one bite at a time. And we just put one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. Because even hard journeys can still be met. What do they say about a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and it also ends with one step. And so we, as a community, walked one step at a time and didn't stop, though the week was daunting in its demands. I'm remembering Mick Jagger's wisdom this morning. Mick Jagger at Christmas time? Well, he's famous for a song in which he sings, "You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need." As I reflect on the whole season so far, and with hope that there will be smoother sailing for this week, but only hope, I look back and realized what did I get? I got a sweater. I got some socks. So did my sons, and we were very glad of it. I received some candy, which I shared. And none of it was what I wanted because I never thought to ask for anything this year. And as my wife and I look back on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve, just yesterday we were saying, if you tick off all the things we had to do this week, it wasn't very much fun at all, but we're feeling wonderful. And I think we're feeling wonderful because we got what we need. The time, the company, the hope. As it says up there, we had the faith, the love, the hope, and the joy, and you can do anything and endure anything if you have those. It isn't the events that give you a good day. It's the heart you bring to it and the heart that other people bring to it. So I'm hoping that you got your 5 gold rings. That is to say, your heaven, that you got your peace, that you beheld the beauty, that you took off the covering that obscures the things you need, and that you found the courage. 5 gold rings to get you through the season. If you haven't found them yet, it's only the 5th day of Christmas. You have 7 more days. And it's an honor as ever to bestow upon you my hope for your goodwill and good blessings. I am blessed by you every day. And I felt it never more than I did this past week. So like Cicely said, who had to leave, sad but true, although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you.